Hi, I am Rasan Samarasinghe. In this video, I demonstrate the distributed recycling machine implementation done by our team. We have created our projects using Eclipse IDE and we have created two versions of the system. The first one is Xml Rpc version of the system and the second one is Java Rmi version of the system. The system has two parts called server and client. At this moment, I am running both server and client on the same PC. And in the next session of this video, I will explain how server and client works on different PCs. First, I explain about the Xml Rpc version of the system. To start the system, we have to start server first. And when we start the server, we get configure server window. It displaying the server IP address that I am currently running, and we can specify a port number, enter 81, and we can start. And when we start, we get this main interface. In this interface, it displaying the number of recycling machines connected with this server and a list of recycling machines with connected time, and transaction history section displaying all transactions done at remote recycling machines, and engineer visits section displaying all the actions performed by engineers on remote recycling machines. The report section helping headquarters to view reports for each recycling machine. Now let's see how this works by observing the source code of the system. Server starts with config server interface. Config server, we can specify a port number and we can start the server, and when we start, it creates a new Xml Rpc server object and create the main user interface and display it, and then it calls the start method of Xml Rpc server object. And Xml Rpc server object created with this Xml Rpc server class, it interacts with remote recycling machines using server handler methods. The start method starting the server and creating the server handler and starting it, and after starting the server, remote recycling machines can be connected with this server. When recycling machines connect with this server, recycling machine calls the connect method with the IP address, and this connect method displaying a prompt to the headquarters user to create a password for the recycling machine, and then a new recycling machine object will be created with the password and it will be inserted into machine log using insert method. The machine log object created with machine log class, it has machines vector containing all recycling machine details, and this method get machines returning all recycling machine details as a string, and the return string is displayed on recycling machines text area. And when customers print receipts on remote recycling machines, recycling machine will call the transaction method on server with the recycling machine IP address and other transaction details, and transaction method on the server creates a new transaction object and inserts that into transaction log object. Now, transaction log created with transaction log class. Transaction log class has transactions vector containing all transaction details, and get transactions method returning all the transaction details as a string, and the return string is displaying on this transaction history text area. And when engineer empty and reset recycling machines located in remote area, recycling machines are calling reset and empty methods on this XML RPC server class. And when a reset method is called, it creates a new engineer visit object with the action that he has taken and inserts that into engineer visit log using insert method. And in a similar way, when engineer empty the recycling machine, it calls empty method on this server with the IP address, and empty method creates a new engineer visit object with the action that he has taken and inserts the object into engineer visit log. Engineer visit log has visits vector containing all engineer actions, and get visits method returning all engineer actions as a string, and they are listed on engineer visits text area. And when headquarters request for report, the report method the report operation calls show report method on XML Rpc server class, and when we call show report method on XML Rpc server, we have to specify the time period and the IP address of the recycling machine that we want the report. And show report method get all transaction details by calling get transaction method on transaction log object. We can specify the time period and IP address of the recycling machine when we get transaction details. And also show report method calls get visits method on the engineer visit log object, and when we call get visits, we can specify the time period and the IP address of the recycling machine, and all these details are printed on report interface. This is how the server works. Now let's see how the recycling machine works. Recycling machines are located in different locations in the country. Now after starting the recycling machine server, you can start recycling machine, and when we start recycling machine, we get configure recycling machine window. In here we have to enter the server IP address and port number. Since I'm running the server on the same PC, we can enter localhost IP address 127.0.0.1 and port number was 81. And when we start, it calls connect method on server, and connect method on server prompts this input dialog box to the user at headquarters, and headquarters can create a password for the recycling machine and approve it. Now the recycling machine number of recycling machines connected with the server is 1, and it is listed on this recycling machines section. Now we got recycling machine interface. In this interface, customers can insert items and they can print the receipt. Let's insert few items, and when customer print the receipt details will be passed to the server, and the transaction history section displaying the recycling machine, the transaction details and the time. Let's do another transaction. When customer prints the receipt, those details are notified by the server. Now let's observe the source code of recycling machine. Recycling machine starts with config client interface, In config client interface, we can specify the server IP address and port number, and we can start it by clicking start button. It creates a new XML Rpc client object and calls connect method, and XML Rpc client object calling connect method on the server, and when server approves that, server will return boolean true, and if it is returning true, we will get the main interface of the recycling machine. And if server rejects the request to connect, this interface will display a message box cannot connect to the server. And when we print receipts, it calls the methods in deposit item receiver. Deposit item receiver class on recycling machine containing all details like what is the machine maximum capacity, and what is the total weight of inserted items, and what are the total inserted items. And we can get machine status by calling get machine status method on deposit item receiver. And when we print the receipt, it calls print receipt method on deposit item receiver. Deposit item receiver creates a new receipt book by using receipt book class, and the receipt basis object will be added into the receipt book by calling add item method. The add item method on receipt book inserts the receipt into the receipt vector, and it calls send receipt method on the client. The client is created with XML Rpc Client class. This class directly interacts with the server. First, when we connect with remote recycling machine server, we call connect method, and when customer print the receipt book add item method calls send receipt method on client. This is the send receipt method on client. It calls transaction method on remote server with the parameters containing the primitive values, which containing the IP address of this recycling machine and all other transaction details. Now let's see how engineer works on this recycling machine. Engineer can visit and access into the admin area, and when we access into admin area, engineer has to enter the username and password. Username for this recycling machine is admin, and password is created by the headquarters. It was 123, and access into admin CP. In admin CP, we have operations for empty, for reset, and for refresh. Empty operation, clear all items inside, and reset operation, clear all items and transaction history. And customers still can perform transactions even after opening the admin CP. So we can refresh this interface to get all the transaction details at the moment. In machine statistics section, displaying the machine capacity and the total items inserted into the machine and the total weight of the inserted items and what are the other items. Transaction history section, displaying all the transactions done on this recycling machine. And these transaction details are stored on receipt book, and deposit item receiver has method called get receipt book, and admin CP get the receipt book and displaying all the items inside the receipt book and displaying them on transaction history. It is doing by calling show transactions method. Now machine statistics are stored in deposit item receiver. Deposit item receiver has this method get machine status, which returning a string that containing statistics of the recycling machine. Right. Now let's see how these operations are working. When engineer click on empty, it clears all items inside. I click empty, machine was empty successfully, and it is notified to the server. In the server end, you can see one engineer action, machine empty, done on remote recycling machine. The reset operation, it will clear all items and transaction history. All items and transaction history clear, and it is notified by the server. It is listed on engineer visits section. Now when we press empty button, deposit item receiver has the empty operation. It resets all variables on deposit item receiver. And when we call reset operation calls the reset method on deposit item receiver, and reset method calls the empty method and also clear all items inside receipt book. Now let's go back to the recycling machine server. Now we have few transactions and engineer actions, and now we can see how report feature works. We can select the time period using these list boxes. Let's select August month, and you can select the recycling machine IP address and click view report button, and this is the report for this recycling machine. The time period is from August 1st to August 31st, and these are the transactions within the time period, and these are the engineer actions within the time period. And if we select all recycling machine actions, including transaction history and engineer visits, will be displayed on the report. That's how XML RPC version of this system works. Now let's look at Rmi implementation. The Rmi implementation is very similar to this version. We have changed only few classes and methods on Rmi implementation. To start Rmi implementation, we have to start Rmi recycling machine server first. We get configure server window. In here we don't have to specify a port. It is hard coded, and we can just see the IP address of the server. You can start. The interface is exactly similar to the XML Rpc version, displaying number of recycling machines and a list of recycling machines, transaction history, displaying all the transactions performed on remote recycling machines, and engineer visits section displaying all the engineer actions done at remote recycling machines, and it has feature for view reports. Let's observe the source code of Rmi implementation. The Rmi server starts with config server class. It has the main method, and when we start the Rmi server by clicking start button, creates a new Rmi server object by using Rmi server class, and it creates the main user interface and make it visible, and after that it calls the start method on Rmi server. Now Rmi server class interacts with remote recycling machines. It has methods to interact with remote recycling machines, and this server class implements the Rmi Server Interface. Rmi Server Interface has 5 methods. This interface is shared with remote recycling machines. Now remote recycling machines are calling these methods implemented on Rmi Server. First, when we connect remote recycling machine with the server, it calls connect method with IP address, and headquarters has to approve that by creating a password. And similar to previous version that we discussed, the recycling machine object will be created and it will be inserted into machine log. And when customer print receipts, the recycling machine will call transaction method on this server, and transaction object will be stored in transaction log. And when engineer come to the recycling machine, he has to log into the admin CP, and when he log into the admin CP, recycling machine call login method on the server with IP address and login details, and login method check the validity of the recycling machine login details by calling get password method on recycling machine log, and if it is valid, it will return boolean true. If not, it will return boolean false. And similar to previous version, this class has reset and empty method called by recycling machine, and when engineer reset or empty, these methods will be called by the recycling machine, and the engineer visit object will be inserted into engineer visit log with engineer action details. And also we can view reports. When we view reports, the report option calls show report method. And show report method, when we call show report method, we have to specify the time period and IP address that we want, and it get all transaction details by calling the transactions method on transaction log, and it get engineer actions by calling get visits method on engineer visit log, and those details are printed on report interface. Now after starting the recycling machine server, we can start recycling machine client. We have implemented Rmi version of recycling machine. We can start, and when we start, we have to enter the server IP address. I'm running server on the same PC, so I enter localhost IP 127.0.0.1, and when we start, it calls connect method on server, and connect method displaying this prompt. You can create a password for this recycling machine, ABC, and approve it. Now connected recycling machines is number 1, and it is listed in this section. Now customers can insert items and print receipts, and customer prints the receipt. The receipt details will be sent to the server. Now it is listed in transaction history section. Let's do another transaction. When we print, the details will be sent to the server. Now let's observe the source code of recycling machine. The RMI version of this recycling machine starts with config client. In config client, we can enter the IP address and start it. And when we start recycling machine, it creates calls connect method on RMI client object. RMI client object created by using RMI client class. This class directly interacts with the server by calling methods on the server, and when we connect with the server first, we call a connect method, and the connect method is looking for the server by using get host address method, and then it calls this method connect, and it returns the return value. And when we print the receipt, we call print receipt method on deposit item receiver class. Deposit item receiver class containing the status of the machine, the total weight of the items inserted, and what are the items and maximum capacity. And also it has this method for printing the receipt, and when we print the receipt, it inserts the receipt basis object into receipt book, and receipt book containing receipts vector containing all transaction details. And when we add an item into the list, it calls send receipt method on client. Client is created with RMI client class, and send receipt method interacts with the server, and it calls transaction method on the server with transaction details, the IP address of the recycling machine, and receipt number, and number of bags, cans, and etc. Now let's log into the admin CP. Now engineer has to come and log into the admin area of this recycling machine. You can enter the username and password. Let's enter username and password. It was ABC. Similar to previous version, it has operations for empty, reset, and refresh. Empty operation, clear all items inside, and reset operation, clear all items inside, and it clears transaction history too. Refresh operation, refresh the machine statistics and transaction history. And when we press empty button, all items will be cleared, but the history is remaining, and these details are sent to the server and the action listed on engineer visit section. Let's reset this recycling machine, and when we reset, machine statistics were cleared and transaction history were cleared, and the detail sent to the server. Now in the server we have connected one recycling machine, and we have few transactions and few engineer actions. Now let's see how reports working. We can select time period, and we can select the recycling machine and click view report. Report is displaying the transaction history of the selected recycling machine and engineer actions of the recycling machine within this time period. And if we select all transaction details and engineer actions happened between this time period will be displayed on the report. Now in this next session of this video, I will explain how server and client works on different PCs.
Hello, my name is Ubaidulla Mueen, and I'll be demonstrating the code for both the Xml Rpc client and the Rmi client. I'll be demonstrating the code for my parts in this assignment, which will be the Xml Rpc client class, the receipt book, and also the Rmi client, Rmi interface, and Rmi Server Interface, and also the receipt book for the Rmi as well. So let's begin with the Xml Rpc client. So the first methods on the Xml Rpc client are defining the server URL as a string and the Xml Rpc client as a client. The next method is initiating the Xml Rpc client object here. Now the following method is the set server URL method, where we set the URL to connect with the server. After which we have the send receipt method. The send receipt method basically sends all the transaction details to the server. The receipt details are taken from the receipt book, which I'll be explaining in a short while. Next we have the login method, which authenticates the username. It requests the authentication from the server and authenticates if the username and the password match. If they match, it returns the boolean as true, else it will return the value as false. Next we have the send machine reset action details method. What it does is, whenever the user on the client side clicks reset and resets the machine, it will send that detail along with the time and IP number of the machine that has been resetted to the server. Then we have the empty method. Basically this is also a similar method. What it does is, it sends the machine empty action details to the server. Whenever somebody clicks the empty machine button, it sends those action details to the server. Next we have the connect method. What it does is, it requests a connection with the server. Once it requests this connection, there'll be a message prompting on the server side, asking requesting the machine to allow the connection. Once the server gives in a password and allows the connection, it will return the boolean as true, else it will return it as false. Next, let's go to the receipt book for the Xml Rpc client. So what the receipt book basically does is it holds all the receipt objects. So it interacts with the server using the Xml Rpc client. So for that reason, here the first method we have is it's creating actually a new vector called receipts, and after which we initiate the Xml Rpc object here. Then the following we have the add item method. What this does is it basically notifies transaction details to server. It adds the receipt object to the receipts vector and then notifies the transaction details to the server. Following we have the get receipt method, as will be explained by Abdul in his video, that there's a get receipt method in the admin UI. So this is where it gets the receipts vector and then it passes the values over to the server. Next we have the clear book method, which clears the receipt book. Now let's go to the RMI side. So we'll start with the RMI client in here. Basically both the RMI client and the Xml Rpc client are the same. The only difference is that here we have the Rmi Server Interface. The Rmi Server Interface is basically it's an abstract method that should be implemented by the Rmi server. It is shared with the server and both the client. It holds all the booleans. So let's go back to the Rmi client. As we did so in the previous Xml Rpc client as well, the first method is setting the URL. Next we have the send receipt method. It is the same as it was in the Xml Rpc client, followed by login, reset, empty, and then connect. All methods that were present in the Xml Rpc client are the same as the Rmi client. So yeah, so the both technology, the difference is that with the Xml Rpc client you need the host port, the server port, in order to connect. Here in the RMI we only need the IP address. On the other hand, in the Xml Rpc client we'll need both the IP address and the port number. So that's the only difference for that. Let's go to the receipt book for the RMI client now. Here the receipt book is also basically the same, with creating a receipt vector called receipts, initiating the RMI client object as we did in the receipt book for the Xml Rpc client. We initiated the Xml Rpc client object. Then we have the add item method, which is also the same, and the get receipt method and the clear book method, which are all the same as they were in the other methods as well. The receipt book for the Xml Rpc as well. So thank you. That was the classes that I have done.
Good day, my name is Abdulqadir Rasheed Abubakar. I'm explaining the RPC client's code of the implementation program. So basically my part in the program is just these three classes: admin login, admin UI, and then config client. So I'll start by explaining the admin login first. So first here, the login interface for admin request authentication server from the RPC server created by the person. So first of all, here are the fields that are declared in the class for later use. So here is the J panel for the main login panel. Here is the label for the username and label for password. Here is txt username for the the text field for username, and then the text password, the text field for the password login, and then the login button. So here is the depositor and receiver class, because on the admin login UI we're going to be transferring values from the admin login from the deposit receiver item from this class here. This method here, we're going to be calling these values and then displaying them on the admin UI class. So that's why this has been declared here. And then the Xml Rpc Client we use this to validate the login, to check if it's wrong or right from the Rpc server. Okay, so here is the construct. Here's the construct here. We're creating we have the receiver. We have the receiver parameter declared here. So here we initialize the receiver from here, from the field, from the global field. We initialize it's the local one declared locally in the construct. Set title for the frame, different title, and then the set bound also for setting the width and the height and the position of the windows and the system on the desktop, and also just basically handling the frame UI, not really anything about the server. Okay, so here is the button listener class. Like here I used a class to implement the action listener. I implement the action listener interface with a class. So here also it's an abstract method action performed with a parameter action events e. So here it's saying boolean return value, Xml Rpc Client. Here this, so it's saying boolean return value Xml Rpc Client has a login method, get text username and get text password. So it validates if the true value if the value corresponds with the value set in the Xml Rpc login method. If it okay, so I'm just showing this. Okay, so in the Recycling Machine server here, it has a method login with some parameters. So here has the Xml Rpc server, then the login method here. So the login method here has admin as the default login. It's a static login ID, and then the password is always set by the machine. Whenever client connects, the server sets a password for the machine. So yeah. So basically this part of the Rpc server will be explained by Rasan Samara Senge. So I really don't have much to do on the server. So okay, back to my okay. So basically when an engineer tries to log in on the admin UI, and then it checks the username, if the username is admin, and then if the password is exactly what the server sets for the admin. If it's alright, if it's valid, it creates an instance of the admin UI and pass the receiver values into it, and then the admin UI is set visible, and then if the list and the details is wrong, it gives you a pop-up saying invalid login, of which you can close out and try again. Like I said, that is that for the admin login. So here the admin UI. So also the admin UI just have some fields and variables declared here at first, like most of which are similar to what I explained on the other class. And here also has the admin UI construct, which is almost same with like, okay. So here basically here look here on the admin UI there's like a field where it displays machine status, like the machine capacity, total items currently in the machine, total machine weight, total transaction, total bag, total cans, crates, glass bottles and plastic bottles. So here like it's sorry, it receives this it receives the information from the string variable, from the str variable here, like it returns the value that's returned by this method is what is passed as a parameter in the set text here. So whenever a text is set, whenever this the UI is logged in with some information, it displays all this on the field there. So here is the transaction history. So because the machine has like more than a single transaction, so for me to be able to handle that, I had to like look through um look, look, look through the receipt book, this part which was done, the receipt book class which was done by Ubay. So it gets the receipt, like the list of receipts there. So for each receipt, like this is more like it for each method. So for each receipt that is in the receipt get receipts method, it does this, it displays them like it has been predefined here. So that is that for here on okay. So if the like for instance, if the admin logs in and then there's nothing on the machine to show, it tells the admin no transaction found. If there's items on the vector list here, it shows them and then displays them as defined on the syntax. The get number and the get account, everything. Okay, here is a reset machine. So like remove everything entirely from the machine. Here is the empty machine button, system method empties the transaction, the machine status and everything. And here is the refresh button, refreshes the machine, so we don't have to log in every time to check for values there. And then these are the button listener classes we created and implemented the action listener interface, and then we call the machine the methods in here, empty, reset and refresh. So that is that for admin UI. So one more class to go. Config client. So also here in the config client, this has the interface to config the IP and the port. Okay, so the IP has been actually defined by the Rpc client. It gets my PC IP, and then the port, I set the port for myself here. Okay, so okay. So here it's a method that controls everything basically. Right? So here the class button listener implements action listener. So here whenever the action the button connect is clicked, it checks it gets the IP of the system and then sets an IP, compares the IP with the port set by the server when the server is done. So if the port is a valid port, it displays the recycling machine GUI where you can add machines and also yeah, that is that for the config client. So that's my part, and here also this is the class that runs whenever I run the machine. I have to configure the client. Also it has the main method. It has the main method which connects to other classes also, So yeah, so now that is that for the RPC clients. On my part, now I'll be explaining the Rmi client part also. Okay, so good day again. Sorry, close all of this. So now I'm explaining the my part on the Rmi client, the admin login UI, the same thing I did also. Okay, so basically here it's the same thing with what's on the RPC client, so no much difference. We just change the classes and implement them as Rmi requires. So here admin UI also has everything. It's exactly the same everything, but just the methods are different because of the Rmi is built and then the config client. Okay, so sorry, let me take it back to the RPC client. So on sorry, uh, so yeah. Here the port, we don't have to like define the port to log in whenever we're connecting or creating a server. We don't have to define the port on the Rmi, but on the RPC we have to get both the port. We have to define both the port on the IP from the server and then the IP from the server and then the port on the server. But on Rmi we just have to define only the port and then everything connects automatically to the PC. If the IP is not doesn't correspond with the one on the server, it tells you can't connect to server. And then if it's connected, it takes you to the recycling machine GUI and then so here also is the main method. Basically the same thing I explained, just little different. I just have to explain this part where the Rmi I have to the Rmi client is different from everything. So the rest of it will be the rest of the classes like on this part here. The rest of the classes here and here some of the classes here will be explained by Ubaid, and then the entire server will be explained by Hassan. So thank you very much. Presenting with Ubaidulla Mueen behind the camera, the RPC and Rmi client and server of the implementation program. So first we are going to start by starting the config server here, and then that's the RPC server. So I'm gonna set the port here 88, and then I start the server, and then I wait here. I come on Ubaidulla system also and start the client. I configure the client, and then I start the client right here, and then I enter the IP given on my system, and then the port also 88 here. So I start this, and then right here it requests for a password, and then I give it an access password of ABC for the admin UI when it's managing the recycling machine and its places. So I okay this, and then the interface here comes up. So I'm gonna add some items: can, glass bottle, plastic bottle, crate, and then bag. So and then I gonna print receipt, and then once I print receipt I can say new transaction, and then I come here, gonna log into the admin area. So hold on, come back here please. So now the moment I added those items there, like it shows on the transaction history on the admin panel that I've added this thing, and then the server connected here displays on the interface on the recycling server interface. Okay, so here now the default username is always admin, but the password will be the password that was set by the server at login time. So the password was ABC. So I'm going to log in with ABC here. Okay, so here we have three buttons: empty, reset, and refresh. So here is the transactions that we had before. So now and then here's the machine statistics, like we explained that in our code and how it works. So I'm just gonna add more items here. Can then print receipt again, and come back to admin area. Then I refresh this, and then the items I added comes up, and then this statistics, it adds the statistics also. So here now I could, here for empty here it works, I could empty the statistics, and then everything clears up, like the machine statistics go back to 0 default. When I reset here, it clears all machine transactions, and then nothing but statistics and transactions are cleared. Okay, so here on the server it has the logs of actions engineer performed. So here it's saying here on Friday 26th August at so time machine was emptied and machine was reset. So here also I could select specific times of report, times I want to display for report. Like I could set a specific date and then display from which IP. Like since it's just one PC connected now, it would be just this IP, so I could like view reports specifically for this PC, which will display here. And okay, so that is that for the RPC client. So on the next video we'll be explaining the RMI client and server. Good day again, and this is the second video for the demonstrating the RPC. Demonstrating the RMI server. So now I'm just gonna start the video, start the server. So here is the IP. Here I don't have to set the port on RMI, so I just start the server normally, and then the server starts, and then on Ubaidulla system here, right? On Ubaidulla system I open the config client, and then I run this, and then the IP is the same thing, the same IP on the PC, so I just put the IP and start this. Also here is requests for password. I'm gonna set the password ABC again, then okay it, and then share the same interface, basically the same but different implementations on both RMI and RPC. So here I'm gonna just add item. I'm gonna add everything, just every single item here. Then admin area, then DMIN, admin, and then password ABC to login. Okay, so here is the transaction history. I think there's a bug, but I didn't print receipt in the last instance, so I'm just gonna print receipt here and then just go back to new transaction history. It brings this interface, so I'm gonna log in again. Admin ABC, and then login. So here are the transaction history. So refresh, basically the same thing. So one thing I didn't show on the other RPC was there are different print options, receipt options. There is print on the display, which I'm going to demonstrate now. Okay, print receipt, it prints on a different interface entirely. If you close it, on the console also it's gonna print like, sorry about that. Okay, so on console, I select console, it's gonna print like right on the Java console interface, and yeah, so that is that. Refresh. Everything I did, it's also logged, regardless of wherever I print the item, it logs on the admin, and also logs on the admin, and also logs on this engineer receipt. So we're just gonna do the demonstration again. I'm gonna just this time I'll reset the machine. So when I reset here, everything, both this part and this part, the machine transaction history and machine statistics clears off. But if it was just the empty just clears the statistics. Just yeah. Okay, so yeah. So also the same, basically the same interface with what I showed before. So yeah. Thank you very much. That's the end of the video. Thank you very much.